My doctor said I had maybe 5 good years left before my mind started slipping. So I decided to slip early and see which of my children would catch me and which would push. Asterisk, the medical report sat on Dr. Patricia Chen's desk like a loaded gun, except it wasn't real. Are you absolutely certain about this? Patricia asked me, her reading glasses sliding down her nose the way they always did when she was worried. I was 68 years old. I'd built cloud tech solutions from my garage into a company worth $847 million before selling it last year. I'd negotiated with venture capitalists who ate founders for breakfast. I'd fired executives twice my size. I'd survived breast cancer, a bad marriage, and 3 economic crashes. I'm certain, I said. Patricia had been my friend for 20 years. Long before either of us had gray hair, we pretended not to die. She knew about my real health, which was boringly excellent. Aside from blood pressure medication and reading glasses I refused to wear in public. This feels dangerous, Margaret, she said, using my full name the way mothers do when they're serious. More dangerous than not knowing, I asked. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been cleaning out my study when I found my checkbook didn't balance, not by a little, by $43,000. I kept meticulous records, had for decades. Numbers were my first language. I called my bank. They walked me through 6 months of checks. Everything legitimate, except for 3 checks I didn't remember writing. All made out to ML Services for repairs and consulting. All signed by me, or someone who'd practiced my signature until it sang. ML Services didn't exist. I searched every business registry. My 3 children, all had keys to my house. All had access to my study. All knew where I kept my checkbook because I'd never hidden it. Why would I? They were my children. Michael, 42, my oldest, a real estate developer who'd spent the last 5 years building luxury condos that somehow never quite sold. His wife Jennifer wore diamonds that caught light like small suns. Laura, 39, my middle child, an artist who'd never met a gallery owner who understood her vision, or an investment opportunity that wasn't going to change everything. Her boyfriend Derek had the kind of charm that made waitresses laugh and creditors patient. Sophie, 35, my youngest, a lawyer who'd made partner young, married to another lawyer, both of them working 100-hour weeks to maintain a lifestyle that looked successful in photographs. I loved all 3 of them the way you love people who came from your body and your life, but love and trust aren't the same country. And I'd spent too many years in business not to know the difference, so I asked Patricia to write a false diagnosis, not a legal document, just a letter on her office letterhead, dated, signed, a letter that said preliminary tests suggested early cognitive decline, possibly Alzheimer's, possibly vascular dementia. Too soon to know, more tests needed, but concerning. What are you going to do with it? Patricia asked. Leave it where they can find it, I said, then watch what happens. She wrote the letter. Her hand shook slightly. She dated it 2 weeks prior, made it look like I'd already known and been processing it alone. Promise me something, she said as she handed it over. Promise you'll be careful. People do terrible things when money's involved. I know, I said. That's why I'm testing. Asterisk, my house sat on 3 acres in Maplewood, a suburb where the trees cost more than the houses. I'd bought it after the sale of my company, a reward for 40 years of 70-hour weeks. That it had 5 bedrooms, a library, a kitchen that could feed 20, and enough space that when my children visited, we didn't have to pretend to like each other more than we did. I spent 3 days preparing. First, I called my lawyer, Robert Martinez. Robert had handled my business deals, my divorce, my will. He knew where all the bodies were buried because he'd helped me bury some of them legally. You want to do what? He said when I explained. Test them, Margaret. This is insane. Is it illegal? He paused. Robert paused when he was thinking like a lawyer instead of a friend. No, it's your money, your house, your medical information to share or not share. But it's cruel. What's cruel is stealing from your mother and thinking she's too old to notice. I told him about the checks. He went quiet in a different way. You could just confront them, he said, and they'd deny it. Maybe it's only one of them. Maybe it's all 3. Maybe it's their spouses pushing them. I need to know who I'm dealing with. Robert sighed like a man watching a car crash in slow motion. What do you need from me? A new will, dated recently, leaving everything in a trust with complicated terms they won't fully understand. Also, I need you to plant some documents. Plant, make it look like I'm confused. Medical powers of attorney I haven't signed. Trust documents with blank beneficiary lines. Papers that suggest I'm trying to get my affairs in order but making mistakes. You want to look vulnerable. Exactly. He drafted everything that week. The documents looked official but were legally meaningless without my actual signature, which I never put on them. He made them look like drafts, like I'd been trying to understand complex legal language and failing. Second, I hired a private investigator named Carmen Rodriguez. Carmen was 55, former police detective, with eyes that had seen everything twice and weren't impressed either time. You want me to follow your own children? She asked. I want to know what they do when they think I'm not looking. I gave her photos, addresses, license plates. She set up surveillance that week. Third, I prepared my house. I installed small cameras, the kind you can't see unless you know where to look. Living room, study, kitchen. I put them high in corners, hidden in picture frames, tucked into bookshelf decorations. I felt like a person wiring their own home for demolition. Maybe I was. Finally, I called each of my children separately. Can you come over Sunday? I asked Michael. I need to talk to you about something. Is everything okay, Mom? His voice had that busy edge, like he was checking his phone while talking. Just come around 2. I called Laura next. Sunday at 2. Something I need to discuss. Mom, I have a gallery thing. This is important. Laura. Silence. Then, fine. 2:30. Sophie. I called last. She'd always been the easiest. Sunday, 3 o'clock. Of course, Mom. Is everything all right? We'll talk then. I left Patricia's letter on my desk in the study corner, visible under a book about memory loss I'd ordered online. The book was real. I'd even highlighted passages, the kind of thing someone scared and searching would do. Then I waited. Michael arrived at 1:55, which meant he was worried. Michael was never early. He wore what he always wore, expensive casual, designer jeans, a sweater that cost more than my first car, shoes you could see your reflection in. His hair had started going silver at the temples, which he'd probably planned because it made him look distinguished. Mom, he said, hugging me briefly. He smelled like cologne and something else. Stress, maybe. Stress has a smell if you know how to notice. Coffee? I offered. Sure. We sat in the kitchen. Sun came through the windows and made his face look younger than it was. I could still see the boy who'd brought me drawings from kindergarten, who'd cried when his goldfish died. What's going on? He asked. I'd rehearsed this part. I made my hand shake slightly as I lifted my coffee cup. Spilled a little. Not much, just enough. Sorry, I said. I've been clumsy lately. His eyes tracked the spill, then my hand. You okay? I saw Dr. Chen last week. Michael went very still. And she's concerned. She wants me to do more tests. Concerned about what? I let my eyes drift, like I was having trouble focusing. Memory things I've been forgetting. Small stuff at first, but ... double quotes. But, Michael, I think something's wrong with my brain. I watched his face do complicated mathematics, concern mixed with something else, something that looked like opportunity if you squinted. I'm sure it's nothing, he said, too quickly. You're sharp as ever. I left the stove on twice last week. I forgot my neighbor's name yesterday. I've known Linda for 8 years. Stress, he said. You just sold your company. That's huge. Your mind's adjusting. Maybe. We sat in silence. He drank his coffee and looked around the kitchen like he was seeing it differently. Appraising, maybe. I'd bought this house cash. No mortgage. Worth at least $2.3 million in this market. Have you told Laura and Sophie? He asked. Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. You're the oldest. That landed the way I knew it would. Michael had always cared about being first. What did Dr. Chen say exactly? He asked. She wrote it down. It's in my study. I keep forgetting the terms. His eyes flicked toward the hallway. Can I see? Of course. We walked to my study. The letter sat exactly where I'd left it. Corner visible. I watched him notice it. His body language changed. Shoulders going back slightly. Is that it? He asked. Yes. I'm scared to read it again. Want me to read it? Would you? He picked up the letter, like it was made of glass. I watched his eyes move across the words. Preliminary cognitive decline. Further testing needed. Concerning patterns. His face did something I'd never seen before. Relief and calculation mixed together. The expression of a man seeing a door open he thought was locked. Mom, he said, voice going soft. We're going to figure this out. You're not alone. I know. I don't want to be a burden. You could never be a burden. He folded the letter carefully. Mind if I take a photo? For my records, in case we need to talk to specialists. Okay. He photographed it with his phone. His hands were steady. He put the letter back exactly where it had been. Have you thought about power of attorney? He asked, just in case things get complicated. Someone to help with decisions. I have some papers Robert drafted, but I haven't signed them yet. They're confusing. I could look at them if you want. I deal with contracts all the time. That would be helpful. I showed him the meaningless papers Robert had created. Michael read them with the focus of a man reading a treasure map. These are pretty standard, he said. But you're right. The language is dense. Want me to explain them? Not today. My head hurts. Of course. He patted my shoulder. Let me know when you want to go through them. I'm here for you, Mom. Whatever you need. After he left, I sat in my study and watched the camera footage on my laptop. 3 minutes after his car pulled away, he called someone. The outdoor camera caught him through his windshield. Phone pressed to his ear. Mouth moving fast. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read his face. That wasn't the face of a worried son. That was the face of a man making plans. Laura arrived at 2:35, wearing what she called her authentic self clothes. Flowing things with patterns that hurt your eyes, jewelry that jangled, hair that looked artistic or messy depending on who you asked. She'd brought Derek, which I hadn't expected. Derek was 40, good-looking in the way men are when they spend time on it. He'd been between opportunities for 3 years. Laura supported them both with money she got from me. Mom, Laura said, hugging me tight. She smelled like patchouli and paint thinner. Sorry we're late. Traffic. It's fine. We sat in the living room. Derek took the best chair without asking, the way he always did. What's going on? Laura asked. You sounded weird on the phone. I did the handshake again, let my words trail off mid-sentence once or twice, repeated myself about the weather. Laura noticed. I saw her notice. Her artistic brain was sharper than people thought. Mom, are you okay? She asked. I saw Dr. Chen. Her face changed. Is it serious? She thinks she's not sure yet, but she's worried about my memory. Laura's eyes went bright with tears. Real tears, I thought. Laura had always felt things deeply, which made her good at art and bad at poker. Oh, Mom, she said, reaching for my hand. Derek leaned forward. What exactly did the doctor say, Margaret? I explained again, watching them both. Laura looked scared. Derek looked thoughtful, like a man solving a problem that might benefit him. Have you thought about care? Derek asked. If things progress, you might need help. Derek, Laura said sharply. What? I'm being practical. Margaret needs to plan. My mother just told us she might have dementia, and you're talking about logistics. Someone has to. They argued briefly. I let them. When they finished, I said quietly, I'm scared. Laura started crying properly then. She hugged me and told me everything would be okay, that she'd be there, that we'd figure it out together. Derek excused himself to use the bathroom. I knew where he went instead. The camera in my study caught him rifling through papers on my desk, photographing documents with his phone. He found Patricia's letter. He found the incomplete power of attorney drafts. He took his time, methodical. When he came back, he looked satisfied. Have you updated your will recently? Derek asked, casual as asking about the weather. Derek, Laura said again. It's a reasonable question. If Margaret's not thinking clearly, I'm sitting right here, I said. I can hear you, of course. I just meant you should make sure everything's in order. Legal stuff gets complicated. I have a lawyer. Good. That's good. They left an hour later. Laura hugged me again, promised to call every day. Derek shook my hand and told me to reach out if I needed anything at all. Through the window, I watched them argue in the driveway, Laura's hands moving sharply, Derek's face set and stubborn. Finally, they got in their car and left. That night, Carmen called. They went straight to a coffee shop, she said. Talked for 90 minutes. I couldn't hear everything, but I got some of it. Want me to send the audio? Yes, the file came through. I listened with headphones, sitting in my dark study. Laura's voice, ... Can't believe you went through her stuff. Derek's voice, someone has to be realistic. If she's losing it, we need to know what we're dealing with. She's my mother, not a business deal. Your mother who gives you $5,000 a month you can't afford to lose. Silence on the recording. That's what I thought, Derek said. So let's be smart about this. I listened to the whole thing twice. Then I sat in the dark and felt something cold settle in my chest. Sophie arrived exactly at 3, which was pure Sophie. She'd probably programmed it into her phone with a reminder at 2:45 to leave. She wore a suit because she always wore suits. Navy blue, expensive, her hair pulled back. She looked like success and exhaustion in equal measure. Her husband, James, had texted earlier saying he was stuck at the office. Sorry, he'd visit soon. I hadn't expected him anyway. James loved his work more than he loved people, which made him an excellent lawyer and a complicated husband. Mom, Sophie said, kissing my cheek. She smelled like coffee, and the kind of perfume that costs more than it should. We sat in the kitchen because Sophie liked kitchens. They were efficient, she'd once told me. Everything had a purpose and place. I'm glad you're here, I said. What's wrong? And don't say nothing. You never call emergency family meetings unless something's wrong. I told her the same story. The doctor, the tests, the concerns. I made my hands shake. I lost my train of thought deliberately. Sophie listened like a lawyer listening to a client. Face neutral, eyes sharp. When I finished, she said, "What's the timeline? For what?" "For decline." "What did Dr. Chen say about progression?" "She doesn't know yet." "More tests." "Which tests specifically?" I named some tests. Got one name wrong on purpose. Sophie caught it. "You mean MRI, not MRC," she said gently. "Yes, sorry, I keep mixing up words." She watched me carefully. "Have you told Michael and Laura?" "Yes, earlier today." "What did they say?" "They were concerned." I bet they were. Something in her tone made me look up. Sophie was watching me with eyes that had cross-examined witnesses and won. "Mom," she said carefully, "are you sure about this diagnosis?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, you seem pretty clear right now. Sharp, not confused." My heart sped up. Sophie was the one I'd worried about most. She was trained to see through people. "I have good days and bad days," I said. "Today's a good day. Convenient." We looked at each other across the kitchen table. For a moment, I thought she'd figured it out. Then she sighed and her face softened. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm being a lawyer when I should be a daughter. This is scary." "Yes. Have you thought about your documents? Will, power of attorney, healthcare directives?" "A little. Robert sent me some papers. I haven't signed them yet. Can I see them?" I showed her the same meaningless drafts. Sophie read them the way she read everything, marking inconsistencies with her mind. "These aren't finished," she said. "They're missing key information, beneficiaries, specific instructions. Mom, you need to complete these." "I know, it's just hard to think about." "I understand. But if your cognition is declining, you need to do this while you still can. Legally, you have to be competent to sign these documents. If you wait too long, I won't be able to decide anything." "Exactly." She helped me make tea. While the water boiled, she walked around the kitchen, looking at things the way she looked at evidence. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course. Have you been having any other symptoms? Beyond memory stuff? Like what?" "Paranoia and suspicion, seeing things that aren't there." I went very still. "Why would you ask that?" "Because cognitive decline sometimes comes with personality changes. I want to know what we're dealing with." "I'm not paranoid, Sophie. I didn't say you were." "I'm asking." We drank our tea in careful silence. Before she left, Sophie hugged me, something she rarely did. She was not a hugger by nature. "I love you, Mom," she said. "We're going to figure this out." "I know." After she left, I checked the cameras. Sophie hadn't gone through my papers. She hadn't photographed anything. She'd simply sat in her car for 10 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, before driving away. That night, Carmen sent me a report. Sophie went back to her office, worked until midnight, which apparently is normal for her. No suspicious calls, no meetings. She did search online for early onset Alzheimer's and legal competency requirements. That's it. I read the report 3 times. 3 children, 3 different reactions, 3 different kinds of concern, mixed with 3 different kinds of calculation. The test was working. Now, I needed to see what they'd do next. 2 days later, Michael called and asked if all 3 kids could come over together. "Family meeting," he said. "We want to talk about your care." They arrived Wednesday evening. Michael, Laura, Sophie, a united front, though the unity looked practiced. They sat in my living room like a corporate board. Michael had even brought a notebook. "Mom," Michael started, "we've been talking, and we're worried about you living here alone." "I'm fine," I said. "You're not fine," Laura said gently. "You're sick. You need help." "What kind of help?" Sophie leaned forward. "We think you should consider assisted living, somewhere with medical staff, activities, people your age. You want to put me in a home?" Not a home, Michael said quickly. A community. Nice places. Really nice. We looked at a few. There's one called Riverside Meadows that's beautiful. Private apartments. Chef. Everything. I don't want to leave my house. Mom, be reasonable, Michael said. What if you fall? What if you leave the stove on and there's a fire? What if you get confused and wander off? I'm not a child. We know that, Sophie said. But you're going to need more care as things progress. It's better to move now while you can still adjust than to wait until there's a crisis. I looked at all three of them, my children, the people I'd raised, fed, taught, loved. They looked back at me with faces full of concern that didn't quite reach their eyes. How much does this place cost? I asked, but Michael shifted. It's expensive, but you can afford it. How expensive? About $12,000 a month, plus an entrance fee, Sophie added. Refundable if you leave, but it's around $200,000. That's a lot of money. You have a lot of money, Mom, Laura said. You just sold your company. You can afford the best care. Is that what this is about? I let my voice shake. My money? No, Michael said firmly. This is about keeping you safe. We've made appointments to tour some places, Sophie said, just to look. This Saturday, will you come? I pretended to think about it. Let them see me struggling with the decision. Finally, I nodded. Okay, but I'm not promising anything. That's all we're asking, Michael said. After they left, I watched the camera footage. The moment they thought they were out of range, Michael high-fived. Derek. Laura looked uncomfortable but didn't object. Sophie checked her phone and frowned at something. They drove away in separate cars, but I knew they'd talk, coordinate, plan. Carmen called an hour later. Michael met with someone at First National Bank. She said, private wealth management, spent 90 minutes in an office, want me to find out what they discussed. Yes. Laura and Derek met with a realtor, looked at houses in the 1.5 to 2 million range, above their price point by about 1.8 million. And Sophie went home and had an argument with her husband. Couldn't get audio, but it looked heated. I thanked Carmen and hung up. Then I sat in my study and made notes. The way I'd made notes in business meetings for 40 years. My children were making plans. Now I needed to make mine. Saturday was performance art, but we toured 3 facilities, Riverside Meadows, Silver Pines, and Autumn Gardens. All of them had names that sounded like somewhere you'd go to die peacefully with classical music playing. Michael drove. Laura and Sophie followed in Laura's car. Derek had come too, uninvited but present. Riverside Meadows was exactly what Michael had described. Beautiful in the way expensive funeral homes are beautiful. Everything soft and beige and carefully lit. The director, a woman named Patricia Carter, not my Dr. Chen, smiled too much and spoke too slowly. We have a wonderful community here, she said, walking us through hallways that smelled like flowers and antiseptic. Residents love our art classes, book clubs, movie nights. Do you have memory care? Michael asked. We have a dedicated wing for residents with cognitive challenges. Very peaceful. Secure. Secure meant locked. I saw the keypads on the doors. Can I see it? I asked. Of course. The memory care wing was painted cheerful colors that made me tired just looking at them. Residents sat in common areas, some watching television, some staring at nothing. A few looked up as we passed. Their eyes were the saddest thing I'd ever seen. How much is this wing? Michael asked. $15,000 monthly, plus the entrance deposit. Michael nodded like this was reasonable. Maybe to him it was. Other people's money always seems reasonable. We toured Silver Pines and Autumn Gardens, both similar. Expensive kindness, professional grief, places where people went when their families decided they were done caring for them. At lunch, afterward, we sat in a restaurant none of us wanted to be in. What did you think, Mom? Sophie asked. They were nice. Which did you like best? Laura asked. I didn't like any of them. Michael set down his fork. Mom, you have to choose something. Why? Because you can't keep living alone. It's not safe. I've lived alone for 20 years since your father left. I've been fine. That was before, Laura said gently. Before what? Before you got sick. I looked at my plate, made myself look small and old and confused. Let them see what they wanted to see. I need time, I said. We don't have time, Michael said. The best places have waiting lists. If we don't put down a deposit soon, you'll end up somewhere terrible. Your brother's right, Derek added, speaking for the first time. These spots go fast. I looked at Derek. He looked back with eyes that calculated futures. How much is the deposit? I asked. $200,000 for Riverside Meadows, Sophie said. But again, it's refundable. I don't have that just sitting around. You have investment accounts, Michael said. We could liquidate some stocks. Michael caught himself. You could liquidate them. That would take time. Paperwork. I'd have to call my financial advisor. Or, Michael said carefully, we could help. If you gave one of us power of attorney, we could handle the financial details, make it easier for you. There it was. The ask. The real reason for the tours and the meetings and the concern. I don't know, I said. Mom, it's just paperwork, Laura said. We're trying to help. Robert says I shouldn't sign anything without him reviewing it. Robert's a lawyer, Michael said, voice tight. He's paid to make things complicated. This is simple. We're your children. We want what's best for you. Sophie had been quiet. Now she spoke, voice careful. Mom, legally, you need to make these decisions while you still can. If your competency declines further, a judge will have to appoint a guardian. That's expensive, complicated, and takes away your choice entirely. This way, you choose who helps you. She was right. Legally, she was also giving them ammunition. Let me think about it, I said. We finished lunch in tense silence. On the drive home, Michael tried again. Mom, I know this is scary, but waiting makes it worse. Let us help. I said, I need time. How much time? I don't know, Michael. I'm old, and I'm sick, and I'm tired. Can I just have a few days to think? He went quiet. When he dropped me off, he said, we only want what's best for you. I know, I lied. Asterisk the next week. They called every day, sometimes twice a day. Michael, have you thought more about Riverside Meadows? Laura, I'm worried about you. Mom, please, let us help. Sophie, we need to get the paperwork moving. These things take time. I played my role, confused, forgetful, overwhelmed. I asked them to repeat things. I got their names mixed up once on purpose. I said I'd think about it, then forgot we'd talked. With each call, I felt them growing frustrated. Not worried, frustrated, like salespeople losing a deal. Carmen's reports came daily. Michael's been meeting with financial advisors. He's deep in debt. Margaret, the condo development went bad. He's leveraged everything. Laura's been talking to Derek about your house. They've been calculating equity. Derek looked up property values for this area. Sophie's been arguing with James. He thinks they're moving too fast. She thinks they're not moving fast enough. On Thursday, Michael showed up unannounced with a woman in a pantsuit. Mom, this is Eleanor Grant, he said. She's a geriatric care specialist. I asked her to meet with you. Eleanor smiled professionally. Mrs. Hartley, your son is concerned about your welfare. I'd like to do a quick assessment, if that's okay. Just some questions. What kind of questions? Memory, daily functions, that sort of thing. It won't take long. I looked at Michael. Did Robert approve this? Mom, you don't need a lawyer to talk to a care specialist. I'd prefer to have him here. Eleanor's smile tightened. I understand you want your lawyer present, but this is really just an informal chat. Nothing legal. Then, I'd prefer to wait. Michael's face went hard. Mom, we're trying to help you. Why are you making this difficult? I'm not trying to be difficult. I just want Robert here. Robert's not your family. We are. I looked at my son, really looked at him. He looked back like a stranger in my son's clothes. I think you should both leave, I said quietly. Mom, please leave. They left. Through the window, I watched Michael and Eleanor talk in the driveway. Eleanor handed him a card. Michael's face was angry in the afternoon light. That night, Carmen called. Eleanor Grant isn't a geriatric care specialist. She's a professional witness. She testifies in competency hearings for families trying to get guardianship over elderly relatives. My stomach went cold. He was trying to build a case. Looks like it. If she'd assessed you and found you incompetent, he could use that in court. Can I get a copy of her credentials? Already sent. She's been involved in 12 cases in the last 3 years. 1-8. The family's got control of assets totaling over $30 million. I sat in my dark study and looked at the numbers Carmen had sent. 12 cases, 8 wins, $30 million, redistributed from old people to their families. My son had almost made me number 13. Asterisk Friday afternoon, all 3 children showed up together. They didn't call first. The doorbell rang. I checked the camera and saw them standing on my porch like a delegation. I opened the door. What's going on? We need to talk, Michael said. Now. They came in without waiting for permission, sat in my living room like they owned it. Sophie spoke first, her lawyer voice. Mom, we've been patient, but this is getting dangerous. You're declining, we can all see it, and you're refusing help. I'm not refusing, you are, Michael interrupted. We found a perfect place for you. We're offering to handle all the details, and you keep stalling. I need time too. You don't have time, Laura said. Her voice was sharp, not gentle anymore. Mom, you're sick. You're going to get worse. If you don't make decisions now, someone else will make them for you. I looked at my youngest daughter. Is that a threat? It's reality, Sophie said. If we have to, we'll petition the court for guardianship. We don't want to, but we will, if you force our hand. The air in the room changed. We'd crossed from pretend concern into real territory. On what grounds? I asked. Incompetence, Sophie said simply. We have Dr. Chun's letter. We have witnesses who've seen you confused. We can get expert testimony. A judge would likely agree you need a guardian. And let me guess, one of you would be that guardian. It would be the three of us, Michael said. Shared responsibility. But yes, I looked at them. My children, the people I'd raised to be strong, independent, ethical. They looked back at me like a business problem they needed to solve. If you do that, I said slowly, you'll take everything from me. My house, my money, my right to make my own choices. We'd take care of everything for you, Laura said. You wouldn't have to worry. I wouldn't have any say. Mom, you're not thinking clearly, Michael said. That's the whole point. You can't be trusted to make good decisions anymore. Something in me went quiet and cold. Get out. What? Get out of my house. Mom, we're trying to help. You're trying to steal from me. All of you. And I want you out. Now. They stood there, shocked, like they couldn't believe I was pushing back. Mom, calm down, Sophie said. You're getting upset over nothing. I'm getting upset over my children threatening to take away my rights. That's not nothing. We're not threatening, Michael said. We're explaining your options. My options are to give you control voluntarily, or have you take it by force. Those aren't options. That's a hostage situation. Jesus, Mom, Laura said. You're being dramatic. Am I? You showed up here, am I? You showed up here, uninvited, told me I'm incompetent, and said you'll take me to court if I don't do what you want. What would you call that? Michael stood. We're leaving. But Mom, think hard about what you're choosing here. We're offering to help. Don't make us do this the hard way. They walked out. The door closed behind them with a sound like finality. I stood in my empty living room and shook, not fake shaking for the cameras, real shaking. From anger and grief, and something that felt like my heart breaking in slow motion. I'd known they might be stealing. I'd suspected they wanted my money. But hearing them threaten to take everything, to declare me incompetent, to lock me away so they could control my life, that was different. That was worse. I called Robert. They just threatened guardianship, I said without greeting. Tell me everything. I did. Every word, every threat. My voice stayed steady until the end, then cracked. Margaret, Robert said gently, are you ready to end this test? What do you mean? I mean you've learned what you needed to know. They've shown you who they are. Now you can protect yourself and stop pretending. How? We revealed the truth. Call a family meeting, show them the cameras, the recordings, the evidence, confront them with what they've done. I thought about it. My children's faces when they realized I'd been testing them. The shock, the anger, the shame maybe. Not yet, I said. Why not? Because I need to know how far they'll actually go. Threatening is one thing, filing guardianship papers is another. I need to see if they'll really do it. Margaret, that's dangerous. If a judge believes their evidence, then you'll fight it. You're a good lawyer. And I have evidence too. I have Patricia's real medical records showing I'm perfectly healthy. I have camera footage of them going through my papers, making plans. I have Carmen's surveillance. I'm not actually vulnerable. Robert, I just look it. He was quiet for a long moment. You're sure about this? I need to know, all the way, not what they say they'll do, what they actually do when they think they can win. All right, but I'm filing some protective documents, just in case. And Margaret, yes, when this is over, you're going to need a therapist, not just a lawyer. He wasn't wrong. Carmen called Monday morning. They filed. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. Already petitioned for emergency guardianship. All three of them, they're asking for immediate temporary authority pending a full hearing, filed this morning at 8 a.m. I sat down. I'd expected it, but expecting and experiencing are different countries. What are their grounds? Cognitive decline, inability to manage affairs, risk of self-harm through neglect. They attached Dr. Chun's letter, Statements from all three of them claiming you've been confused and forgetful, and a statement from Eleanor Grant saying you refused assessment. She never assessed me. Her statement says your refusal is itself evidence of lack of insight, which is a symptom of dementia. I closed my eyes. They'd built a real case, fast and efficient. When's the hearing? Thursday. Judge Morrison, he's old school, protective of elders, could go either way. Does Robert know? He's been served. He called me right after to ask if I had documentation ready. I thanked Carmen and called Robert. I'm filing a response today, he said. We're going to challenge everything. But Margaret, this is real now. They're not playing. Neither am I. What do you want to do? I want to go to that hearing and show the judge exactly what kind of people my children are. That's risky. If you seem confused or angry, it helps their case. I won't seem confused. I'll seem like a competent woman whose children are trying to rob her. Robert sighed. All right, but I'm bringing Patricia. Her real medical evaluation, dated last week, showing you're cognitively perfect. Good. And Margaret, prepare yourself. This is going to hurt. I knew what he meant. Thursday, I'd sit in a courtroom and listen to my children tell a judge I was incompetent. I'd hear them list every moment I'd pretended to be confused, not knowing they were fake moments. I'd watch them try to destroy me to take what was mine. But they didn't know what I knew. They didn't know about the cameras, the recordings, Carmen's surveillance. They didn't know Patricia's letter was fake. They thought they were hunting. They didn't realize they were the ones in the trap. Asterisk, the days before the hearing moved like honey, slow and sticky. Robert prepared our defense like a general planning a siege. Documents, exhibits, witness lists. He spent 12 hours Tuesday compiling everything. Carmen gave me 3 flash drives with surveillance footage, time-stamped and organized. This is Michael going through your desk. This is Derek photographing documents. This is all 3 of them arriving for the intervention, plus exterior footage of their meetings, conversations, the bank visits. Patricia came over Wednesday evening. She looked tired in a way that made me feel guilty. I'm sorry, I said. I dragged you into this. You didn't drag me. I chose. But Margaret, I need you to be ready for tomorrow. Are you? Because your children are going to say terrible things. They're going to paint you as a confused old woman. They're going to use that letter I wrote, my name, my office, and I'm going to have to sit there and contradict it. Tell the court I wrote a false diagnosis to help you test your children. Will you get in trouble? Maybe, probably not. It wasn't an official medical record, just a letter. But it's going to be ugly. I know. She looked at me with eyes that had seen thousands of patients, had delivered bad news and good, had held hands through dying and healing. Why are you doing this? You could just cut them off, change your will, move on. Because I need to know, I said. Not what they said they'd do, what they actually did when they thought they could get away with it. I need that to be final. Otherwise, I'll always wonder if I was wrong, if maybe they would have stopped before going this far. And now you know they won't stop. Now I know. Wednesday night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed and watched shadows on the ceiling and thought about 3 children I'd raised. Michael at 7, building a tower out of blocks. So proud when it stood tall. Laura at 9, painting me a picture for Mother's Day, yellow sun and blue house and 4 stick figures holding hands. Sophie at 5, reading me a book she'd memorized, pretending she could read, wanting so badly to be grown up. Somewhere between those children and these adults, something had broken. Or maybe it had always been broken and I'd just never looked close enough. At 3 a.m., I got up and made tea, sat in my kitchen in the dark, thought about the choice I'd made to test them instead of trusting them. Maybe Patricia was right. Maybe I could have just cut them off, changed my will, protected myself quietly. But I was a businesswoman. I'd built a company on information, on knowing exactly what I was dealing with before making decisions. Guessing was for people who couldn't afford mistakes. I couldn't afford to be wrong about my children, not when my whole life, my money, my freedom was at stake. So I'd tested, and they'd failed. Tomorrow, a judge would decide who was telling the truth, but I already knew. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge's bench that looked like it had been there since before I was born. Judge Morrison was 65, gray-haired, glasses on a chain. He looked like someone's kind uncle, until you saw his eyes. Those were sharp and tired and done with people's nonsense. My children sat on one side with their lawyer, a man named Preston who had silver hair and a suit that cost what I used to make in a month. When I was starting my company, I sat on the other side with Robert. Patricia sat behind us, medical files in her lap. The bailiff called the case. Judge Morrison looked up from his papers. "This is a petition for emergency guardianship," he said. "Mr. Preston, you're representing the petitioners." "Yes, Your Honor." Preston stood. "We're here on behalf of Margaret Hartley's 3 children, who are deeply concerned about their mother's declining cognitive state and her inability to manage her affairs safely. Ms. Hartley is represented." Robert stood. "Yes, Your Honor." Robert Martinez for the respondent. "Mrs. Hartley opposes this petition." "All right, let's hear it, Mr. Preston." Preston called Michael first. My oldest son walked to the witness stand, swore to tell the truth, sat down. "He didn't look at me, Mr. Hartley." Preston began. "How long have you been concerned about your mother's mental state?" "About 2 months, maybe longer." "Looking back, what changes did you notice?" Michael listed them. The hand tremor, forgetting names, repeating questions, getting confused about dates, leaving the stove on. "Did she tell you about a medical diagnosis?" Preston asked. "Yes, she saw her doctor, Dr. Chen. She showed me a letter saying there were concerns about cognitive decline, possibly Alzheimer's. Did this diagnosis concern you?" "Very much." "What did you try to do to help?" "We offered 2 tours, assisted living facilities, places with medical staff where she'd be safe. We offered to help with paperwork, with finances, to make things easier." "How did she respond?" "She refused. She got angry. She accused us of trying to steal from her, which isn't true. We're just trying to keep her safe." I watched my son lie under oath and felt something inside me go cold and distant. Preston showed Michael the photos he'd taken of the incomplete power of attorney documents. "Did these concern you?" "Yes. She'd tried to fill them out but made mistakes. Left sections blank. It showed she was struggling." "In your opinion, can your mother safely manage her own affairs?" "No, I don't think so. I think she needs help, whether she admits it or not." Robert stood to cross-examine. "Mr. Hartley, you mentioned your mother showed you a letter from Dr. Chen. Did you verify that letter with the doctor?" Michael hesitated. "No." "Did you ask your mother if you could speak to Dr. Chen directly?" "She wouldn't have agreed." "You didn't ask, though?" "No." "You accepted the letter at face value?" "Yes." Robert pulled out a document. "Mr. Hartley, are you aware your mother had a complete neuropsychological evaluation done last week by Dr. Patricia Chen, showing normal cognitive function?" Michael's face went white. "What? Your Honor, I'd like to submit this evaluation as Exhibit A." Preston objected. Robert argued. The judge allowed it. Robert continued. "Mr. Hartley, you mentioned helping with finances. What's your current financial situation?" "Objection," Preston said. "Relevance, Your Honor, it goes to motive." "I'll allow it. Answer the question, Mr. Hartley." Michael shifted. "I'm fine. Are you? Isn't it true you're in debt over $2 million from a failed real estate development?" "That's temporary." "Isn't it true you've been meeting with financial advisors about accessing your mother's accounts to help her or to help yourself?" "Objection. Sustained." "Watch it, Mr. Martinez." But the point was made. Michael stepped down looking shaken. Laura went next. She cried through her testimony, talked about how much she loved me, how scared she was watching me decline. She sounded genuine. Maybe she even believed it. Robert was gentler with her on cross-examination, but still effective. "Miss Hartley, do you receive financial support from your mother?" "Yes, $5,000 a month. If your mother were placed under guardianship, that money would continue." I assume so. "And if your mother changed her will to cut you out, that money would stop." "I guess so. You have a financial interest in maintaining access to your mother's assets." Laura's tears dried up fast. "That's not why we're doing this." "Of course not." Sophie testified last. She was calm, professional, detailed. She talked about legal competency requirements, about the importance of acting before capacity was completely gone. "If we wait too long," Sophie said, "a court-appointed guardian will take over. Someone who doesn't know our mother, doesn't love her. We're trying to prevent that." She sounded so reasonable, so caring. If I didn't know better, I might have believed her. Robert's cross-examination was sharp. "Miss Hartley, you're a lawyer. You understand guardianship law." "Yes, you understand that if you and your siblings are appointed guardians, you'll control all of your mother's assets." "That's one aspect." "Yes, including her house, worth approximately $2.3 million, if it needs to be sold for her care." "Yes, and her investment accounts, worth approximately $40 million. Sophie's jaw tightened. "We would manage them in her best interest." "Define best interest." "Her care, her needs, her quality of life." not your needs, your student loans, perhaps your mortgage. Objection. This is badgering. Sustained. But again, the point landed. Sophie stepped down with red spots on her cheeks. Preston called Eleanor Grant, the professional witness. She testified about my refusal to be assessed, my lack of insight. Robert destroyed her on cross-examination. Ms. Grant, how many competency evaluations have you performed in the last 3 years? Approximately 12. And in how many of those cases did you find the person competent? 4. So 2/3 of the time, you find people incompetent. When there's genuine impairment, yes. And what's your fee for testimony? $5,000 per case, plus expenses. So you've made $60,000 in 3 years by helping families take control of their elderly relatives' assets. I provide an objective medical assessment. Do you? Because you never actually assessed Mrs. Hartley, did you? She refused. So your testimony today is based on her refusal to meet with you, not on any actual medical evaluation. Eleanor's professional smile cracked. Refusal itself can indicate yes or no. Ms. Grant, did you perform a medical evaluation of Mrs. Hartley? No. No further questions. Then it was our turn. Robert called Patricia first. She walked to the stand with the weight of truth and complexity on her shoulders. Dr. Chen, did you write the letter dated 6 weeks ago expressing concern about Mrs. Hartley's cognitive state? Yes. Was it a true diagnosis? Patricia took a breath. No. Mrs. Hartley asked me to write it as part of a test. She suspected her children were financially exploiting her. She wanted to see how they would react if they believed she was becoming incompetent. The courtroom went silent. Michael, Laura, and Sophie stared at Patricia like she'd grown a second head. That was unethical, Preston sputtered. Actually, Patricia said calmly, it wasn't a medical record, it was a letter. Mrs. Hartley is my patient and my friend. She asked for help testing a hypothesis. I helped. And what is Mrs. Hartley's actual cognitive state? Robert asked. Excellent. I performed a complete neuropsychological battery last week. She scored in the superior range for her age. Her memory, reasoning, and executive function are all normal. There is no evidence of cognitive decline whatsoever. Preston cross-examined but couldn't shake her. Patricia had receipts, test results, dates, clinical notes. Then Robert called me. I walked to the stand, swore my oath, sat down, looked at my children for the first time that day. They looked back like strangers. Mrs. Hartley, Robert began, why did you create this test? Because I found checks missing from my account, $43,000 worth, made out to a company that doesn't exist, signed with my signature. Only my children had access to my checkbook. What happened when you told them about Dr. Chen's letter? They started planning how to get me into assisted living, how to get power of attorney, how to access my accounts. Did you refuse help because you're confused? I refused help because they weren't trying to help. They were trying to take control of my money. How do you know that? I recorded them. Preston shot to his feet. Your Honor, I installed cameras in my home, I said clearly, with my full legal right to do so. I recorded my children going through my papers, photographing private documents, discussing how to divide my assets. I hired a private investigator who documented their meetings with financial advisors, realtors, and estate lawyers. I have evidence of everything they've done. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Do you have these recordings? Yes, Your Honor. I want to see them. We spent the next hour watching footage, Michael rifling through my desk, Derek photographing documents, Laura and Derek discussing my house value, all three of them in my living room, planning the intervention, talking about how to handle me. The judge watched without expression. My children watched with growing horror. When the last clip finished, Judge Morrison looked at them with something close to disgust. Mr. Preston, do your clients wish to withdraw their petition? Preston whispered frantically with Michael, Laura, and Sophie. Finally, he stood. Your Honor, in light of new evidence, the petitioners withdraw their petition. I thought they might, the judge said dryly. Mrs. Hartley, I apologize that the court's time was wasted with this matter. Your children should be ashamed of themselves. He banged his gavel. Petition dismissed. The hallway outside the courtroom felt like walking underwater. Sound was muffled. Movement was slow. My children stood in a cluster with Preston, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. When they saw me, they froze. I walked up to them. Robert touched my arm, but I shook my head. Mom, Michael started. Don't. We can explain. You filed a legal petition to have me declared incompetent so you could steal my money. What's to explain? We weren't stealing, Laura said. We were worried. You were worried about losing your monthly checks. There's a difference. Sophie stepped forward. Of the three, she looked the most destroyed. Mom, I'm sorry. We made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. This was calculated, planned. You threatened to take away my freedom. We thought you were really sick, Michael said. No, you didn't. You hoped I was sick. You needed me to be sick. Because if I was healthy and competent, you couldn't justify taking what's mine. None of them could meet my eyes. I raised you better than this, I said quietly. I taught you to work hard, be honest, take care of people who need help, and you learned none of it. You learned to take shortcuts, to see people as resources, to prioritize money over integrity. Mom, please, Laura was crying. Don't do this. I'm not doing anything. You did this. You chose this, every step of the way. I looked at each of them one last time, my children, who weren't children anymore, and maybe never really had been. Robert will be in touch about the stolen funds, I said. You can pay them back or I can press charges. Your choice. I walked away. Behind me, someone called my name, but I kept walking. Out of the courthouse, into the parking lot, into my car. I drove home in silence, parked in my driveway, sat there for 10 minutes, hands on the wheel. I'd won. I'd proven they were trying to exploit me. I'd protected my assets, my freedom, my life. So why did I feel like I'd lost everything that mattered? The next week passed in strange quiet. My children didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up at my door. Robert called daily with updates. Michael's attorney contacted me about the funds. He wants to set up a payment plan. And the others. Laura's boyfriend Derek disappeared. Apparently, he left town. Laura's devastated. Sophie asked if she could meet with you, said she wants to apologize properly. Tell her no. Margaret, I'm not ready. Robert, I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready. Patricia came over Thursday with wine and sympathy. We sat on my back patio and watched the sun go down. How are you? She asked. I don't know. Fine, terrible, both. You did the right thing. I set them up. I manufactured a situation designed to make them fail. No, you created a test. They chose how to respond. They could have been concerned and supportive and respectful of your autonomy. Instead, they tried to steal from you. But if I'd never tested them, I wouldn't know. We could still have family dinners. Awkward but intact. Margaret, they were already stealing from you. The $43,000, that was real. The test didn't create their greed. It just exposed it. She was right, logically. But logic doesn't comfort broken hearts. Carmen stopped by Friday. She handed me a final report, everything documented and organized, in case you need it for legal purposes. Thank you. Can I say something? Carmen asked. Sure. I've been a PI for 20 years. I've seen a lot of family disputes, and most of them end with people lying to themselves about who their relatives really are. You didn't lie to yourself. That takes courage. It feels more like cowardice, like I didn't trust them enough. You trusted yourself, your instincts. That's not cowardice, that's survival. After Carmen left, I sat in my study and looked at the final report. Pages of evidence, time-stamped and organized, a complete record of my children's greed. I put it in my safe next to my will. Maybe someday I'd need it. Maybe I'd just let it sit there. A reminder of the time I chose truth over comfort. 2 weeks after the hearing, my doorbell rang at 9 a.m. I checked the camera, expecting a delivery driver. Instead, I saw Sophie. She stood on my porch, no makeup, hair pulled back, wearing jeans and an old college sweatshirt. She looked young and small and nothing like the polished lawyer who'd testified against me. I almost didn't open the door, but something in her posture, the way she stood there not pressing the bell again, just waiting, made me reconsider. I opened the door, but not the storm door. Mom, she said. Sophie, can I talk to you, please? Your lawyer told Robert I didn't want to meet. I know, but I'm not here as a lawyer. I'm here as your daughter, or trying to be. I stood there, hand on the door, deciding. 5 minutes, I said finally. We sat in my kitchen. I didn't offer her coffee. This wasn't a social visit. Sophie folded her hands on the table. I'm sorry, you said that at the courthouse. I know, but I don't think you understood what I was apologizing for trying to have me declared incompetent, for failing you. Her voice cracked, for being so focused on my own stress and my own problems that I convinced myself we were helping you when really we were helping ourselves. I waited. I have $380,000 in student loans. Sophie said, James has another $200,000. We both make good money, but not good enough. Not for the loans, the mortgage, the life we're supposed to be living. Every month we're drowning a little more. So you decided to speed up your inheritance. No, I mean, yes, kind of. I didn't think of it like that. I thought, if you needed care anyway, if you were really sick, then us helping wouldn't be stealing. It would be efficient. Efficient. I know how that sounds, but Mom, I'm tired. I'm so tired. I work 90 hours a week. I barely see my husband. We don't have kids because we can't afford them. And I kept thinking, you have so much, more than you'll ever need. And we have nothing but debt and exhaustion. So you felt entitled to mine. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Yes, I felt entitled. And I was wrong. The others put you up to it. Michael came to me first, said you were declining, said we needed to act fast before you gave it all away to charity or something. He made it sound urgent, necessary, and you believed him. I wanted to believe him. That's the truth. I wanted there to be a reason, a justification. I wanted it to be okay to stop struggling. I looked at my youngest daughter, the one who'd worked hardest, achieved most, followed every rule, and it hadn't been enough. What about Laura? I asked. Laura just followed Michael's lead. She always does. And Derek was pushing her. He saw dollar signs. He left her. I know. As soon as the hearing was over and it was clear there was no money coming, packed his stuff and moved to California. How is she? Destroyed, but maybe better off. We sat in silence. Outside, a bird sang something cheerful and ignorant of human complications. I'm resigning from the firm, Sophie said. Taking a public interest job. It pays half what I make now, but the hours are better. James and I are selling our house, moving to a smaller place. We're done pretending we're richer than we are. That's wise. It's humiliating, but necessary. She looked up at me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know I understand what I did, and I'm trying to be better. Why? Because you raised me to be better. And somewhere along the way, I forgot. I looked at Sophie and saw her clearly. Not the lawyer, not the conspirator, just a tired woman who'd made terrible choices and was trying to find her way back. Thank you for telling me, I said. Can I ask you something? Yes. That test. When did you know that we'd actually file the guardianship petition? I didn't know. That was the point. I needed to see how far you'd go. And we went all the way. Yes. Sophie's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, Mom, for all of it. For thinking about your money instead of your heart. For putting my needs over your dignity. For failing the test. It wasn't a test you could pass by performing, Sophie. It was a test of character. And character isn't something you can fake. I know. She stood. I'll go. But Mom, one more thing. What? I loved you the whole time. Even when I was doing terrible things. Even when I was plotting against you. I loved you. I just loved money more. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to fix that. After she left, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, thinking about love and money and the complicated math of family. Sophie's visit didn't fix anything, but it was something. A small door opened in a wall I'd built brick by brick. Asterisk 3 months later, Robert called with news. Michael paid back the $43,000, wire transfer, cleared today, and he added interest. What about Laura? She's set up a payment plan, $500 a month. At that rate, it'll take 7 years, but she's committed. And Sophie sent a check for her portion, even though we couldn't prove she'd taken any. Said she felt responsible for all of it. I thanked Robert and hung up. Then, I did something I hadn't done in months. I pulled out my phone and looked at photos of my children when they were young. Michael with a missing tooth, Laura covered in finger paint, Sophie at her law school graduation, proud and innocent. Asterisk, where had it gone wrong? Or had it been wrong all along, and I'd just missed the signs? Patricia would say I was being too hard on myself. Carmen would say some people are just greedy. Robert would remind me that I did the right thing. But sitting alone in my house with my money and my safety and my righteous anger, I didn't feel right. I felt empty. The doorbell rang. I checked the camera, expecting Carmen with more reports. Instead, I saw all 3 of my children standing on my porch. Michael, Laura, Sophie, together but not touching, like strangers waiting for a bus. I opened the door. Mom, Michael said, Can we talk? All of us. I should have said no, should have kept my boundaries firm, my heart protected. But something in their faces, shame and hope, mixed together, made me step back. Come in. We sat in my living room, the same room where they demanded I sign over my life, the same room where I'd watched them on cameras, plotting against me. Michael spoke first. I've been in therapy, contorted at first, but I kept going, talking about debt, about failure, about how I thought money would fix me. Does it? I asked. No, it makes me more desperate, more willing to do terrible things. I'm declaring bankruptcy, starting over. It's humiliating, but it's honest. Laura went next. Derek left. You know that. What you don't know is he'd been stealing from me too. Small amounts I didn't notice. He saw how I treated you and figured I was an easy mark. She laughed bitterly. I was so angry at you for not trusting us, but you were right not to trust us. We were exactly what you thought we were. And now, I asked, now I'm working a real job, administrative work at a gallery. It's boring, and it pays nothing, but it's mine, not funded by guilt money from my mom. Sophie spoke last. I told you I was changing jobs. I did, and it's hard. James and I fight about money constantly, but we're not drowning anymore. We're just treading water, and that's enough. They all looked at me, waiting. Why are you here? I asked. To apologize, Michael said. Really apologize, not the courthouse version where we were trying to save face. This time, without excuses. We were greedy, Laura said. We saw you as an ATM, not a person. We justified it because we loved you. But love doesn't excuse theft. And we want to know, Sophie said carefully, if there's any way back from this, if you can ever forgive us. I looked at my 3 children, the people who'd tried to destroy me, the people I'd raised and loved and failed and been failed by. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know if I can trust you again. I don't know if we can be a family after this. We understand, Michael said, but can we try? What would that look like? Dinners, Sophie suggested. Once a month, here or at a restaurant, supervised by a neutral party if you want. Therapy, Laura added. Family therapy. All of us, working through this with a professional. Time, Michael said. However much you need. No pressure, no expectations, just the chance to rebuild. I thought about it. The safe path would be to send them away, stay protected behind my walls. But safe wasn't the same as whole. One dinner, I said. Next month, here you bring the food. I'll provide the space. We'll try to be civil, and then we'll see. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was just a door opened a crack, letting in a slim beam of possibility. They agreed, made their promises, gave their thanks, left quietly. After they were gone, I called Patricia. I think I made a mistake, I said. What kind? I let them back in. Just a little. Maybe I'm being weak. Or maybe you're being human. Humans make mistakes. Margaret, parents and children both. The question isn't whether you made mistakes. It's whether you're willing to try again despite them. What if they hurt me again? Then you'll know, and you'll protect yourself. But at least you'll know you tried. The first dinner was awkward. Tentative. Everyone too polite. We talked about weather and neutral topics and avoided anything real. The second dinner, a month later, had a fight. Michael said something thoughtless about my house being too big. I snapped at him. He snapped back, then stopped himself. Sorry, he said. Old habits. Me too. The third dinner, Sophie brought her husband James. He apologized for not speaking up during the guardianship attempt. I knew it was wrong, he said. I should have said so. I was a coward. Yes, I agreed. But you're here now. By the fourth dinner, Laura had brought a painting she'd made. Nothing fancy, just watercolors of my garden. I can't pay you back in money fast enough, she said, but I can give you my art, if you want it. I hung it in my study, where I could see it every day. The family therapy sessions were harder. Dr. Klein *. By the fourth dinner, Laura had brought a painting she'd made. Nothing fancy, just watercolors of my garden. I can't pay you back in money fast enough, she said, but I can give you my art, if you want it. I hung it in my study, where I could see it every day. The family therapy sessions were harder. Dr. Klein didn't let anyone hide. She made us say the ugly things out loud, made us sit with the discomfort. Margaret, you tested your children instead of trusting them, she said in our third session. Why? Because they were stealing from me. Before the test, before you knew that, why didn't you just ask them about the missing money? I sat with that question because I was afraid they'd lie. And if they lied to my face, I'd have to choose between believing them or calling them liars. The test let me know the truth without confrontation. But it was a confrontation, Dr. Klein said, just a delayed one, and more painful because of the deception. I was protecting myself. Were you? Or were you protecting yourself from having to trust again? That hit something true and uncomfortable. Michael spoke up. She's right, Mom. You set us up to fail. Yes, we failed spectacularly, but you never gave us a chance to succeed. You were already stealing from me, I said. I would have kept stealing if you'd just asked me about it. But maybe if you'd come to me different, trusted me with the truth, I would have had to face what I was doing sooner. That's not my responsibility, I said. I'm not responsible for your choices. No, Sophie said, but you taught us not to trust each other. You taught us that family means surveillance and testing instead of communication. That's not fair, I said. Dr. Klein held up a hand. Let's pause here. Margaret, how did your parents handle money? The question threw me. What does that have to do with anything? Humor me. I thought back. My father controlled everything. My mother never saw a bank statement. When he died, she discovered he'd spent their retirement on bad investments. She had nothing. And what did you learn from that? That you can't trust anyone with your money, not even family, especially not family. Dr. Klein said gently, and you've spent your whole life proving that lesson right. Building a company alone, getting divorced, keeping your finances separate from your children. When the missing checks appeared, you didn't see it as a specific problem with a specific child. You saw it as confirmation of what you already believed. Everyone will betray you eventually. I felt something crack open in my chest. So this is my fault? No. Your children made their choices, but you created a test designed to confirm your worst fears, and they gave you exactly what you were looking for. Asterisk, 6 months after the hearing, I did something I'd been avoiding. I called Michael and asked him to lunch. Just the two of us. We met at a diner halfway between our houses, neutral territory. He arrived on time, looking nervous. We ordered coffee and sandwiches. We didn't eat. Mom, he said, what's this about? I want to understand something. When did you start taking money from my account? He went pale. I thought we weren't going to talk about that anymore. We haven't talked about it. We've danced around it. But I need to know. Michael stared at his coffee. 2 years ago, the first time, it was $800 for payroll. My company was struggling, and I needed to make payroll or lose my crew. I told myself I'd pay it back the next week. Did you? No. Because the next week I needed it again, and the week after that. It got easier each time. I'd write a check, forge your signature, tell myself it was borrowing, not stealing. $43,000 worth of borrowing. I know, I'm not making excuses, I'm just telling you how it happened. Little compromises until I couldn't see the line anymore. Did Laura and Sophie know? Not at first, but when you started talking about cognitive decline, I told them, said, we needed to move fast before you gave everything away or got taken advantage of by scammers. I made them believe we were protecting you. Were you protecting me? Even a little. Michael looked up at me with his father's eyes. I wanted to believe I was, but no, I was protecting my access to your money. Everything else was justification. We sat in silence. The diner noise continued around us, plates clattering, conversation humming. Life going on like our small tragedy was just background static. Why are you asking me this now? Michael said. Because I need to know if you understand what you did, not the theft, the betrayal. You were willing to have me declared incompetent, locked away, erased as a person, for money. I know because I lie awake sometimes wondering if you really understand what that means. You would have taken my freedom, my dignity, my right to exist as myself. That's not theft, Michael. That's annihilation. His eyes filled with tears. I understand, Mom. I think about it every day. What I almost did to you. How close I came to destroying you. And I don't know how to live with that. You're supposed to live with it. That's the consequence. Not jail, not poverty. Living with the knowledge of what you're capable of when you're desperate enough. I hate myself for it. I know. But Michael, self-hatred isn't the same as change. Are you actually different? Or are you just sorry you got caught? He was quiet for a long time. I don't know. I want to be different. I'm trying to be different. But I don't know if people can really change or if we just get better at hiding who we are. It was the most honest thing he'd said in months. Thank you, I said. For what? For not lying. For not saying you've changed and you'll never hurt me again. For admitting you don't know. We finished lunch. He paid, even though I'd invited him. As we stood to leave, he hugged me. Brief and awkward, but real. "I love you, Mom," he said. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but I do, I know," I said, and I did. A year after the hearing, I sat in Robert's office with a fresh cup of coffee and a decision I'd been avoiding. "I need to update my will," I said. "I was wondering when you'd get to this. I've been thinking about it. What's fair, what's right, what I actually want, and what do you want?" I handed him a piece of paper with my notes. He read it carefully, eyebrows rising. "You're leaving them money," he said. "Not as much as before, but yes, after everything they did, they're still my children. They made terrible mistakes, but they're trying to fix them. They're in therapy. They're paying me back. They show up to dinners even when it's uncomfortable. That's the bare minimum, Margaret. I know, but it's something, and I don't want to be the mother who punished them forever. I want to be the mother who held them accountable and then gave them a chance to rebuild." Robert read my notes again. "You're giving the majority to charity. Yes, scholarships for women in business. I want to help people who are where I was at 25, starting with nothing but ideas. And your children each get enough to be comfortable but not enough to stop working." Exactly, $500,000 each. Enough to pay off their debts, buy a modest house, have some security, not enough to retire or be careless. "What about the house?" "Sold after I die. Proceeds split between the scholarship fund and my grandchildren's education trusts, if I ever have grandchildren." This is generous, Margaret, more generous than I'd be. I'm not being generous, I'm being realistic. If I cut them out completely, they'll fight the will, drag it through courts, waste money on lawyers, turn my death into a circus. This way, they get something, not what they wanted, but enough that fighting would cost more than accepting. You're still protecting yourself, always, but I'm also giving them grace. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Robert typed up the changes. I signed the new will with steady hands. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. A document that reflected both their failures and their efforts, both my hurt and my hope. Asterisk, 18 months after the hearing, Sophie showed up at my house on a Tuesday afternoon. She looked exhausted but peaceful, if that makes sense. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. "Always." We sat in my kitchen. She pulled out an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a check for $50,000, made out to me, signed by Sophie. "I don't understand," I said. "It's my portion of what we stole. Michael took most of it, but I benefited from the plan. I got that monthly money from you that I used to supplement my income. I participated in trying to control you. This is my way of making it right. Sophie, we agreed you didn't need to. I needed to. For me, I've been saving for a year, living on less, taking freelance work, skipping vacations, and now I can pay you back and feel like maybe I'm not a terrible person anymore." I looked at my youngest daughter. She'd aged in the last year and a half. Lines around her eyes, gray in her hair, but also something else, something that looked like integrity earned the hard way. "You were never a terrible person," I said. "You made terrible choices. There's a difference, is there? Yes, terrible people don't come back. They don't apologize. They don't save money for a year to right a wrong nobody's forcing them to fix. You did all of that." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted you to know I understand what I did, not just intellectually, in my bones, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life being someone worthy of your trust. You already are." We both cried then, messy and real, and something that had been broken started to feel like maybe it could heal. Asterisk, the last family dinner before Thanksgiving was smaller than it used to be. Michael came alone. His wife Jennifer had left him during the bankruptcy, which surprised no one. Laura brought a new boyfriend, quiet and kind, who worked as a teacher. Sophie and James came together, holding hands like people who'd survived something. We gathered in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd tested them 3 years ago. The cameras were still there, hidden in corners, but I'd stopped checking the footage. Trust has to start somewhere. "Mom, you're not cooking," Laura said, seeing me sit down. "I'm 71 years old. I've cooked enough turkeys. This year, you're cooking." They did. Michael handled the turkey, following a YouTube video on his phone. Laura made sides that were creative and slightly burnt. Sophie organized everyone with checklists and timers. We sat down to eat around 6 p.m. The food was imperfect and beautiful. "I want to say something," I said before we ate. They looked up, wary. "Old habits. 3 years ago, I tested you. I pretended to be sick to see what you'd do, and you failed spectacularly. Michael winced. Laura looked down. Sophie nodded. But here's what I learned. The test wasn't fair. I set you up in a situation designed to bring out your worst impulses: fear, greed, desperation. And you gave me exactly that. Mom, Michael started. Let me finish. You failed the test. But then you did something harder. You showed up anyway. You apologized. Not once, but over and over. You went to therapy. You changed your lives. You paid me back, even when I didn't require it. You rebuilt trust, one awkward dinner at a time. I looked at each of them, my complicated, flawed, trying their best children. So here's what I want to say. I forgive you. All of you. Completely. Not because you earned it, though you have, but because I choose to. Because holding on to anger was making me smaller, not stronger. And because you're my children, and I love you, and that has to mean something. The room was very quiet. Then Laura started crying. Michael reached across and squeezed my hand. Sophie said, "Thank you, Mom, for everything, for testing us, for catching us, for not giving up on us. We ate dinner, we laughed at bad jokes, we told stories about when they were young, we were careful with each other, but we were real. After everyone left, I cleaned up the kitchen alone. Patricia called to check in. How was it? She asked. Good. Really good. Do you trust them now? I thought about it. I'm learning to. Trust isn't a switch you flip. It's something you build carefully, one moment at a time. They've given me a lot of good moments, maybe enough to start believing in more. I'm proud of you," Patricia said. For what? For choosing the harder path. You could have cut them off, protected yourself with money and lawyers and distance. Instead, you chose relationship, even with all its risks. After we hung up, I walked through my house, still mine, still secure, but not a fortress anymore, just a home where people who'd hurt each other were learning to love each other again. I thought about that test 3 years ago, the fake diagnosis, the cameras, the elaborate trap. I'd been so sure I needed to know the truth, to see my children clearly, but the real truth wasn't in that one test. It was in what came after, in the choice to stay or go, to punish or forgive, to close the door or leave it open a crack. I'd left it open, and slowly, carefully, we'd all walked through. Not because they deserved it, not because I was naive, but because some things are worth the risk of being wrong. Family, I'd learned, was one of them. 3 years after Margaret's test, on an ordinary Tuesday, she received 3 cards in the mail. Michael's card was simple. Thank you for not giving up on me when I gave up on myself. Laura's had a watercolor sheet painted, a house with 3 doors, all open. Sophie's was longest. You taught me that trust isn't blind faith. It's choosing to believe in someone's capacity to change, even when they've given you every reason not to. I'm spending my life trying to deserve that belief. Margaret kept all 3 cards in her study, next to the final surveillance report she'd never opened. Some tests, she'd learned, aren't about finding the truth. They're about deciding what to do once you've found it. After reading Margaret's story, ask yourself, would you have tested your family? Or would you have confronted them directly? When someone betrays you, how do you know if they've really changed? Is time enough? Actions, words, all 3. Can families recover from financial betrayal? Or does money poison trust permanently? Was Margaret cruel to set up her test? Or was she protecting herself the only way she knew how? If you discovered your children were stealing from you, what would you do? Is forgiveness something you earn, or something you give? These aren't easy questions. Margaret struggled with all of them. Maybe you will too. But that's the point of stories like this. Not to give you answers, but to help you think about what you'd do when tested. Because life tests all of us eventually. The question is, how will you respond? Thank you.